Welcome to Voices of Supported Employment, the podcast by Durham Enable. Each episode highlights the stories of individuals with disabilities, job coaches, and employers all working together to build a more inclusive workforce. We explore the impact of supported employment, showcasing how job coaches empower individuals and how employers can create disability-confident organisations. Join us as we break down barriers, inspire change, and work towards a future where everyone can thrive in the world of work. Welcome back to the podcast. This is the second episode of Launch Week, and we are continuing with the theme of what supported employment has meant for me. As a team, we really hope that you have enjoyed and learned something from what you have heard so far. We also want to remind you to subscribe, share, and leave your reviews. Today, you're going to be hearing from Alison Stephenson, Managing Director of AAA Caring Caretakers. Alison brings her experience both on a personal and professional level to all aspects of her work, training, and disability advocacy. Alison, welcome to the Voices of Supported Employment podcast. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm enjoying the fact the sun's finally come out because that always cheers you up, doesn't it?
It does. It's come back, hasn't it, this week? We're hoping that it stays for a bit longer.
Well, if it could stay the weekend, that would be great.
That's good. Thank you so much for taking the time to be part of the show today. I know the conversation that we've had before we pressed record, you're doing a lot of things. You're juggling a lot of things, but you've taken the time to talk to us today. And I know that, everyone listening is going to have a really, what should I say, informative and educational listen, I think, and get a lot from what it is you have to share with us today.
I hope so, yes.
So before we get started, can you just introduce yourself to us all, explaining who you are, what it is you do? Just letting everyone know who Alison is.
So I'm Alison. In the boring part of the world, I'm a mum. I'm very, very happily married. I've got two wonderful boys. Both of them are autistic, so life is a bit of a juggle at home. In the world of work, I am the Managing Director of AAA Caring Caretaker Limited, predominantly a cleaning and grounds maintenance business. But our big focus and ethos is around supportive employment, and we only recruit through agencies that support people back into work. And I'm quite passionate about that because I had a really rough ride in employment, getting jobs and then being asked to leave because my hearing got in the way, issues cropped up. And being young and naive, didn't know I could argue that, so moved on to the next job, and then eventually got to the point where an opportunity came up with my dad to set up a business together. And I made the decision then to always be the boss I never had. And I would always have an open door policy and nothing that could get in anyone's way. Any barrier that anyone brought, I had the tools to break them down.
Yeah. Wow, already. I think people are listening and thinking, wow, this is going to be a really cool conversation. You've touched on a little bit about your background, but can we go back a little bit to your history and explain to us kind of what your additional needs are and how that's impacted you and what your journey has been kind of to this point?
Yeah, so I am deaf. I wear 2 hearing aids, but I mean, it doesn't give me everything. There's a lot of sound that I still miss. I have a condition called fibromyalgia, which creates severe pain in my body and tiredness. And I also have mental health issues. I have complex PTSD. So certain sounds or smells or situations trigger my PTSD. And in terms of work, a couple examples where I worked in care. So I started working in a care home when I was 16. Because like all 16-year-olds, you want a car when you're 17. So I was allowed to do like a couple of shifts, and then I moved to I couldn't cope in that environment because I couldn't hear what people were saying. And if people were shouting along the corridors, somebody had a fall in their room and was shouting and I didn't hear it. So then, that person unfortunately was there longer than they should have been. And so it was suggested that I moved on. So I found a job then working with supported living. So it was a smaller house with residents in there, and then staff lived in there full time. There I got my drugs qualification and thought, right, I can go back into the big care homes, but be a manager and administer medication and things like that. So I successfully did that. Became the senior manager for night shifts and had a wonderful time until a patient with dementia who was prone to escaping got out the fire door. And I was the only one in the area, and I didn't hear the fire door alarm because it's a frequency I don't have access to. So then it was suggested, maybe this isn't the right place for me. So I was then like, what am I going to do? So I then went into a big wallowing kind of session of like, nobody's going to ever want me. Nobody. So I then got a job as a carer, like a care assistant on a ward at a local hospital. And I just worked like bank for them and built a passion for the hospital sector and thought, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a nurse. So a permanent post came up, a semi-permanent, it was a maternity cover post, came available. So I applied, moved hospitals and worked for 6 months on this contract with a view of getting the job at the end. And everybody loved me. I was really good at my job until there was a crisis with all of the blood pressure machines not working. So blood pressure had to be done manually. And I can't do that because I can't hear through the stethoscope. So then it was in commas, kind of a burden on everybody else because I couldn't do that task. So things were a bit rocky, and I kind of persuaded them that, this was an unusual circumstance. So they decided I could stay. But then the following week, someone fell out of their bed, so they pulled the red cord. Now, in the hospitals, when you pull a red cord, like 20-odd people go running, except me. Like, I was still down the other end of the ward, and they were like, where were you? And it was like, but there was 20 other people that turned up, way more qualified than me. So it was decided that it wasn't worth the health and safety risk to stay. So back to the drawing board, got a job with a charity. It was my dream job. I absolutely loved it. And then I got postnatal depression after having my son. So I asked to work part-time, and it was basically, I was told it's full-time or no time. So I left that job. So I came back to the Northeast, sat down with my parents, like, what am I going to do? And then between my dad and I, we had this discussion and we thought, right, let's set up this business. So then I was like, right, I'm going to be the boss I never had. I'm never going to discriminate someone ever, ever again. So that's why I got to the point of that passion of you can work.
Yeah. There's so many, like, everyone listening now will see how many times that you quote unquote failed, or got knocked down, or asked politely to move on. I like that phrase. It probably didn't come out that way.
No, it was that way. You get that sort of, well, you choose to go, it looks better on you than if we let you go. And like, hindsight's amazing. If I could go back to where I was with the knowledge I had, I probably wouldn't have gone through that journey. But then I believe things happen for a reason. And I am, quite religious, practicing Catholic, and I do strongly believe that I have obviously been knocked back a lot, and I shouldn't have.
Mhm.
But I do believe that I needed to do that to become the person I am now, to be able to give all these people the opportunity. All these people that I have on my payroll wouldn't be in this kind of supported work if I hadn't got that journey. So I feel like it was meant to have been.
Yeah. What did your support structure look like while you were going through that time? Because there's a certain amount of resilience that is needed for you to go from one.
Yes.
Okay, the first job, you get the first job and it doesn't work out. You move on to the next one. But when that's continuously happening because of the fact that you're a deaf person, and that you can't hear what's going on.
Yes.
And at each stage, nobody seems to be getting that. And looking at ways of how we can, adapt the environment around you so that you can work effectively. What did your support structure look like? Because there are lots of people who'll be listening who maybe don't have that and are thinking, well, I'm just going to give up because this is just too hard.
So I've got obviously my husband, who is amazing. Like, he himself identifies as having neurodiversity issues, and he's just always been my rock. But before him, I would have to say my only support was my parents. But my dad was my biggest role model, because my dad was in the RAF. So we moved house like every year or two. And when we moved house, it was country as well, not just a house. So I got used to moving on from one thing to another, starting again in another school, making new friends, move on, start again. So I kind of built a resilience of things ending and moving on out of my control from a very, very young age, because I moved my whole life. So that kind of, but I've got a best friend now, and I love, meeting up with that group of people, and that's where I play, and that's where the post office is, and you learn all that and you get comfortable in it, and then you're upsticked and you moved and you have to do it all again. So some of that resilience came from that. But then later in life, it came from my dad himself, because he was knocked back a lot. So when he left the RAF, he got knocked back from a lot of jobs, made redundant. He worked for some very large corporate organisations and worked for some quite high-powered people, but kept getting made redundant. So his consistent redundancy kind of then fueled him to start his own business, which is where a property business was developed by him. And then later on, together, my dad and I set up this business. So I mean, I've not got any other support network in terms of that, but I would say that constant moving helped. But then seeing my dad get knocked back 3 times from jobs, I think that's where it's come from.
Yeah. So you were fortunate, even though you say that it was a very small network of support, it was what you needed at the time.
It was.
I'm very conscious of the fact that, there are some of us in the disability community who will say, you need to build that resilience. You need to get up. You need to not give up. You need to keep going. Don't let things stop you. But then there are others who are probably right now in the thick of the disappointment or the rejection, and don't see that way, see a way forward.
Yes.
We're super early on in the conversation, but advice around that.
I mean, it's certainly difficult if you've not got someone to keep you going. I think it's quite difficult because it's around that view of how you see yourself. How accepting are you of your own limitations? How accepting are you of your own needs and requirements? And you're in that medical social model argument of disability, in that, you've got some people who view your conditions and disabilities as medically needing fixing. So when you've got people constantly in your ear going, well, you need to have this surgery, you need to have this medication, you need to try this, we need to fix you, you know, they're setting them up for a false sense of hope, because you can't, you know, cure someone 100%.
Yeah.
So I think the medical world need to become more aware of this and need to be better trained in it, because they are setting them up for that false hope. But then society needs to get a grip as well, in that, you know, as a society, we need to be more accepting and more understanding. And I think if we could just fuel the people around us, then those stuck in that rut would get out of it better.
Yeah.
And I would say everything happens for a reason, and you will find the right job eventually. I mean, look how many I went through. You know, my CV's huge. I don't write them all out now. You know, and you will get there, but I would say reach out, like talk to people, you know, don't sit and wallow, because it doesn't help. It's not helpful at all. But I think you need to have kind of a little bit of self-care in there as well. Let yourself have a bit of a wallow, you know, go and have a soak in the bath with a bath bomb, have a cup of tea, a big bar of chocolate, and kind of go, right, what am I going to do?
Yeah. Permission to eat chocolate.
Oh, absolutely.
That's like the best. It's
proven to be like the cure for it. Releases endorphins or something. It creates happiness in the body. So if the medical world said that it can do all that, then, well, I'd much rather eat a bar of chocolate than have a bottle of pills.
Yeah, that's it. So along with our theme of this week, and what supported employment has meant for me, you know, and we're talking about kind of the whole sector that is supported employment. I have spoken briefly about the fact that I had no idea what supported employment was, and if I had known, and I'm reluctant to say now, if I had known, maybe things would have been different, because I'm quite happy the way things are right now, even though when I look back I think, oh, I wish I hadn't had to go through those particular things. But actually where I sit right now is a pretty good place.
Definitely.
But the whole idea of supported employment, you know, is something that I think is still people aren't really aware of or understand.
I was going to say a lot of it is more, I think, around that understanding. When I go networking and I meet businesses and I talk to businesses, too many just have the complete wrong perspective of what supportive employment is. They think it's going to be more work, it's going to be more time consuming, you know, it's going to cost them more, it's going to be an inconvenience because there's probably going to be another person in supporting the person that they've employed, and they're going to have to do all these adaptations. And I think supportive employment, it's a lack of understanding of what it is. It is the biggest barrier to it.
And understanding, I think that goes deeper in that lack of understanding about what disability is and means. It doesn't necessarily mean can't do all the time. Yes, there are things that can't be done within any disability, but there's lots that can be done. So I think you're right that it's about understanding is the base level.
Yeah, I think people think they need to know, you know, have a doctorate in the disability that this person's come with. And it's like, no, you just need to know what they need to, you know, to make their work accessible. And I think employers are missing out on such a huge pool of talent because they forget that disabled people excel in other areas. So the area they are weak in, they are super more cleverer in another area. So, you know, people who are deaf are proven to be far more visual and can spot things quicker and see things, make things more visual and pretty. You know, so when you're thinking about, say, a technology company who designs websites and designs social media posts, you know, if you sat a deaf person down to design something against a hearing person, you're more than likely to get a better version from the deaf person because their visual understanding is heightened in the same way that other disabilities, wherever they lack, they are far more motivated. You know, and I think that's the bit that people don't get. And they miss the hidden bit in the background, so they miss the concept of motivation. So you could bring two people in for a job. Person A could have a disability of some kind. Person B doesn't have a disability. Now, the person without a disability is probably skilled, qualified to do the job that you want them to do. So that's the easy option. Bring them in, give them the job. The disabled person comes in and may not have all the skills, and you're going to have to teach them that. But the difference is that the non-disabled person won't be as motivated as the disabled person. You can teach a skill, you can't teach motivation. So if you teach the motivated person a skill, you've now got motivated and skilled, whereas the other person will just be skilled because you will never teach them to be motivated. And sickness levels are amazing here because no one phones in sick unless they're absolutely dying because they're so committed to their job that they've been given a chance. They're motivated because we see them. So they want to come to work for me. They want to be in work and they enjoy being in work because it's so supportive. So I think employers need to get a grip on the, you know, what is it you can teach and what can't you?
You can teach the skill.
You can't teach motivation.
Can't teach motivation.
You can't.
That is, and that's something actually that even coming from an education background, I'm just thinking thinking back and thinking, oh yeah, you can teach them all of these things, but actually, if they're not bringing themselves to the party, if they're not bringing themselves to the table, then it's going to be more difficult, isn't it, to get
exactly
to get
you
the
know
job done.
The non-disabled persons probably pick the job because A, they're qualified to do it. It'll be an easy ride for them and they've paid their bills. You know, whereas a disabled person, life isn't about paying their bills. Life is about the world accepting them for who they are and feeling comfortable in who they are and, you know, that acceptance level. So they go to work because they have to pay their bills, but also there's that hidden motivation of, you know, I'm going to prove you all wrong kind of attitude. I mean, it's not an attitude we should ever have to have. And I hear people say things like, oh, well, we went down the route of inclusive employment, and so we have recruited someone with autism because we wanted the rest of the team to become more tolerant about disability. And it's like, with disabled people, we don't, as a community, need to be tolerated. We just need to be accepted and accepted for what we are amazing at, not what we come with.
Yeah, absolutely. You spoke about the reason why you started the business.
Yes.
Because you wanted to be the boss you never had. So that tells me, and tell me if I'm wrong, but that tells me in the jobs that you had before, you did not have access to, or anyone sort of providing you with the processes that we go through within supported employment, all of those kind of, you know, the support mechanisms that are there around the job, you know, having a job coach and having roles carved for you, and like you're saying, really focusing on your skills and your strengths and what you bring. What does it look like now then to be an employer who does follow the model, the supported employment model, and holds on to those values that we speak about within the sector?
I mean, I'm dead passionate about it. Like,
we know that.
I hope that's come across.
We're very aware.
I think that's come across. I mean, when I look back at like the managers that I've had, and the jobs that I've had, it does annoy me a lot. It really does anger me that their ignorance has caused me to move on. But then in hindsight, their ignorance has got me to where I am.
Yeah.
And I think now I am that supportive employer. I feel like it's my job to shout about it and very loudly to make other people like that. And you can't be a supportive employer unless you want to be or you know how to be. So you need people like me who is big and loud and proud about being a supportive employer to teach all these other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the more we teach, the more supportive the world will become. And then disability will become something, I hope, that's never even considered, you know, in jobs as something to talk about other than access needs.
Yeah.
But everybody works differently, you know, like you've got some people who don't have a disability and just don't like certain ways of working. Some people like 6,000 Post-it notes all over their computer screen and their desk. That doesn't mean that they've got a mental health condition. That means they can't remember stuff, so therefore they need sticky notes everywhere. And I think if you walked through any job, walked through an open plan office somewhere, or you walked, you know, into a site maintenance and you watched a load of caretakers, you will find nobody works the same. They all work their own way because that's how they prefer to work. That doesn't mean they've got a disability. So then why, when a disabled person comes along and says, but I can only work this way, is it suddenly a problem? It really annoys me because it's like, but none of them are doing the same thing. But that's kind of my message, is that everybody works differently anyway, and we should just see employment as that's someone's unique way of working.
Yeah. Have you got an example of someone you've employed, what the process has been like? Because like you say, this is about education. This is about everybody learning. You know, none of us are, you know, the full experts. Every day we're learning something new about something you know, something we didn't understand maybe, you know, before.
Every day's a learning day.
Every day is a learning day, every day is a school day, you know, that kind of thing. So we're not saying that any employer listening to this or any business owner listening to this needs to kind of feel bad about maybe the way that they thought yesterday. Because today you can think differently.
Exactly.
You can think differently. So I think it'd be really helpful if you could give us maybe an example of how you have, as an employer, gone through the process of working with, you know, us in Durham Enable as a supported employment service. What has that process been like? And how has that enhanced your business and the person that you have employed?
Yes, it's a wonderful journey when you do it. And I've done it a number of times with different agencies, you know, yourselves included. But generally the process has always been that, you know, I'll send whoever my contact is a job description and I'll say, this job's available. And what's really magic is if you do that on the normal job centre site, you'll get thousands of applications. And most of them are no good because they don't even live where you are. Right. You know, I posted a job a long time ago and people from Wales and London were applying because they had to get their clicks in of applications. And it's so time consuming and boring. Whereas if you go down this supportive employment route, they only put forward the people they think are right for the job. So straight away, you've saved an absolute fortune of time, right? And you can't put a value on time. So I've loved that part of it, especially. And then the people that are put forward, then we recently went through a recruitment process. So we sent it out. Everybody sent us in who they thought. We had 6 people come to interview. And throughout the process, we were in touch with the relevant job coaches. So we would say to the job coach, this is what's going to happen in the interview. What does that person need us to do for the interview? So for the one we've just done, one came back and said that they get quite anxious about unknown questions. Could they have the questions in advance? Well, we had preset questions because it's scored properly on a scoring system. So we provided the job coach with the questions. They then went away and worked with that person. The next step then obviously is interview. So with the job coaches, we said to them, is there anything else you need us to be aware of in the interview? And would the potential candidate like you in the room? The reason we do that is because this person has obviously gone through a tough time. It doesn't matter what or where or why. When you get to this level, you normally with a job coach because you've had a rough time. So it takes a long time to build trust. So these people come with job coaches and the job coaches give a hidden layer of trust. It also gives them then a hidden layer of comfort, that natural comfort. So when people come to interview, people are nervous. Everybody's nervous at an interview. But I find that doing it on this route, we have a smoother interview process because that level of anxiety and nervousness is a lot lower because they've got this job coach with them that they know and trust. So we've had some where the job coach has come in and sat at the back of the room. We've had others where they've just sat next door in case we've needed them. So that's a big plus doing it on that route. Once the interview's over, the job coach and the candidate will go away, and then we will score the interviews, choose our person and give feedback. Anyone who doesn't make it, we explain in full detail to the job coach why, because we feel the feedback's super, super important because it gives them something to then teach them for their next interview. We always offer work experience. So if they failed an interview, we offer them to come and do a work placement with us to get some experience and have something then to confidently talk about. We then chose our person and they came, we arranged an appointment for them to come with the job coach to discuss, you know, the paperwork side of the job. And we looked at, you know, when would they like to start? We drew up a list of typical questions that, you know, a new person would need to know that perhaps other people don't think of as being an unknown question. So we went through all of that and we just had a really relaxed conversation with a Q&A. And the job coach jumped in a few times and helped us a little bit with, you know, this is what works for this person and they prefer this. So then we mutually agreed on the adaptations that this person would have, which was slightly guided by the job coach. She gave us a sheet that had been filled in, a passport. So it had this person's needs.
So like the reasonable adjustments.
Exactly. So we used that document to then write a care plan and a trigger plan. And then that was it. We went away. We left the door open for like question and answers until they started. The first day the job coach came, and it was very much, I kind of almost ignored the job coach and just dealt with our new member of staff. And a couple of times she did support, which was great because the new candidate, obviously she was nervous starting a job, but then she had someone she could trust. And then the job coach stayed for the first week. But as the week went on, the job coach did less and less. And then by the last day, she actually left half day because the new person was absolutely fine. And then she's never needed her again, but she did check in with her every day. So it was someone outside of the organisation, keeping an eye on her. She comes now every other month, well, every month at the minute, to do like a checkup. So she'll be back on Monday. And it's so nice having somebody else to sort of, they don't make you feel like you're stupid because you don't know the answers, because you can't know everything. And I've got so much experience, but I would never class myself as an expert because everybody's different. And there are times where I'll have to sit and think, right, how are we going to do this? And I've come up with all sorts for the staff along the way. But with a job coach, they've already got that inside perspective. So they're almost giving you the clues to then be able to do the next bit. And it's just so nice having someone that makes you feel like you're doing the right thing. And, you know, and it's just a little bit of extra kind of authentication then that this person's going to be okay. So I totally recommend that route. Totally. I've done it a few times now. And I've really enjoyed the process of having someone else.
So you've looked at like having, you know, a job coach, going through the process, but having a job coach who is obviously supporting the candidate and the person, the employee, hopefully at the end, but actually that job coach brings a whole wealth of knowledge and information to the organization as well, to the company.
Absolutely.
And that's someone that you, as you know, the boss, can look to for support as well.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
It's not just having someone who's sitting there, you know, as a sticking plaster for this person actually.
Because you can't know everything. I mean, my boys, I've got two boys, both are autistic, but they're like chalk and cheese. They're literally the moon and the earth apart. They are so, so different. And what works for one doesn't work for the other in our house. And it's an absolute nightmare. So to try and claim, you know, everything about autism, for example, is ridiculous, you know. And I think employers need to understand that, they don't have to know everything. You know, they don't need to know everything, but they need to be open to learning and learn about that person, not that condition. So it's about what do they need to do the job to so that they're satisfied, not how do we treat. So autism, for example, how do we treat the autistic traits that have been brought into the workplace? Like, no, the focus is what does this person need to make their work easier? And I just think having a job coach, it's just another sounding board, especially for someone like me. I'm at the top. There's no one to go and ask. I've got no managers to ask. You know, all my supervisors come to me for advice, but I've got no one to go to. So having a job coach gives me a little bit of a security blanket to kind of go, well, actually, how do we get around this, and what can we do together to make that work?
So positive experience.
Oh, absolutely.
Positive experience.
Absolutely.
Alison, we could like sit and talk.
I know,
much all day.
We talk all day.
We don't have all day.
No, we don't.
Unfortunately. But I'm sure that, you know, you'll be back, and we'll talk more, because there's so much around the deaf awareness training that you do. There's tons. There's tons that we could talk about. But to kind of bring this episode and this conversation to a close, what then would you say? How would you describe your journey within supported employment? What has supported employment meant for you?
It's meant that I can follow my own dreams of being the boss I never had. It's allowed me to put people into work that would normally be pushed aside. It's give me a warm heart at the end of every day, knowing that I've done my best to support someone into a job. And every time I let another person in, you know, I just think, I don't see it as my employment numbers have gone up, woohoo. I see it as I've got someone else out of their house and into a job. And it makes my heart warm.
It's a very nice it's a very nice feeling to be able to see those, and from my position where I am, I get to see lots of people going into lots of different roles as well. But actually, as an employer, that you've saved one more,
Yes,
is a really nice feeling. Thank you.
No,
thank you so much for everything that you've shared today. I'm definitely going to be taking notes when I listen back. Taking notes on what you said, because there's so many really good things. And for everyone listening, you're going to be at our next Inclusive Employer Network, aren't you?
I am,
featuring there as well. So if you've enjoyed what you've heard today of Alison, come and get some more. Come and understand some more. Come and meet Alison in person. And information about that is on all our socials and things like that. But we really look forward to seeing you there. Right. But for now, thank you very much. And we hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to Voices of Supported Employment. We hope you found today's episode inspiring and insightful. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to download, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps us reach more people and spread the message of inclusion. Until next time, let's continue working together to create a workforce where everyone knows that they are safe, seen, and supported.